Please be seated. The court is now back in session. The International Council, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, everyone. I won't take up much time. I meant to do this earlier, but I didn't want to cut too deeply into the lunch break. Of a very quick application concerning something in today's Cambodia Daily, and this relates to an article on the front page, and the title of that article is Sonando Verdict, a Tough Test for KRT Legacy. And that, of course, is referring to the Mam Sonando case. And I won't go into the details, but mindful of the knuckle rapping I received yesterday from Judge Cartwright about making timely applications, I wanted to get this on the record as soon as possible. This article briefly concerns the abject failure of this tribunal to have any effect on the appalling state of Cambodia's municipal justice system. And given that next week we're going to have some time to discuss documents, my application today is that this article in particular be tabled for discussion. I'm certain it will be part of the official press releases today, so perhaps everyone could have a look at it. We could hear responses and replies, if any, on Monday, and then we could have a decision as to whether or not that's an appropriate topic for discussion in the court. If I could just briefly quote from that article, just to give the public a flavor of what's contained. And I'm quoting now, "Far from setting a good example, the Khmer Rouge Tribunal may have done just the opposite," said Rupert Abbott, Amnesty International's Asia researcher for Cambodia. I won't go on. I'll leave it there. But I do think this is an important issue that ought to be discussed in the public before this chamber. It clearly concerns the legacy of this tribunal.
President, the prosecution, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Vaughan, if we can return to our discussion of the West Zone Congresses, which you attended and described a little bit earlier. And we talked about speeches referring to purges of enemy, burrowing from within, and the Vietnamese enemy. What I'd like to do is show you a document which contains a speech given at a conference in July 1977. And see whether some of the contents of that speech resonate with you, and whether you recall that particular speech. Your Honours, this is document E3/193. It is the August 1977 issue of the Revolutionary Flag. Of course, I have a hard copy for the witness, and we can display it on the screen with your permission.
Yes, you may proceed. Court officer, could you take the document for the witness examination?
Mr. Vaughan, you will see that on your second page, this document says that it contains a presentation of the party organisation representative regarding a number of instructions in building, strengthening and expanding party leadership on the occasion of the West Zone Cadre Conference, 25 July 1977. It's a long document and we don't have the time to review all of its contents. I'll just read to you from a couple of passages and see whether you recognize that speech. Your Honours, this first passage is at Khmer ERN 000-62949, French 00611-827, and English 00399-224. And under point 1, the speech says, "The movement herded and trampled elements that betrayed the revolution, counter-revolutionary elements, dangerous elements, no good elements. All these elements were trampled and crushed by the mass movement during these past 6 months." And I'll read to you another passage before I ask you some questions. And this is at Khmer ERN 000-62952, French 00611-829-230, and English 00399-226. And here the speech discusses the situation in a number of sectors. And Sector 37 is the one I wish to look at, because that's where you were located. The speech goes on to say, quote, "Sector 37 is the same. Comparatively, Sector 37 is still more complicated than Sectors 31 and 32 because there are many new elements and it has a bad history. Koh Kong has had betrayal since long, long ago. In 1974, we sorted that out and got good control. Just looking at those two passages, do they resonate with you, Mr. Vaughan? Do you recall a speech being given in the terms that I just read?
Within the military units, we rarely heard of such speech because we were far away.
I'll just read one other brief passage and see whether this one, whether you recognise some of this information. At Khmer 000-62956, French 00611-833, and English 00399-229. Here we have the following passage, quote, "We all make the assessment to be crystal clear about the party line. This is because it is not like a party instructional circular is done without understanding. The party has raised this principle based on the concrete situation and a clear analysis." A little bit further down, it continues, "Imagine Sector 37, the history of which I spoke about earlier. The contemptible Chong's group controlled it all along, and later the contemptible Nuke's group controlled it all along. They were built into party members, into cadre, into the army. This is a location about which we must be vigilant. We must pay attention to and be vigilant toward the sources built by those groups." The reference to Nuke, could that be a reference to the individual that you were describing earlier as the Sector 37 secretary who had been removed?
I did not know whether this name referred to the same person. However, I heard about that event as I was told by my friends. But I myself did not attend the meeting organized by the General Staff.
The speeches that you did hear, and which we were talking about before the adjournment, those speeches discussed the purges of the enemy, borrowing from within. Were those speeches similar to these passages that we've been looking at?
Yes.
Now, if I move on to a couple of other documents and see whether you are able to recognize some of the names in them, Your Honours, the next document that I want to show the witness is E3/1220. This is a report authored by Office M401, and it was one of the documents that was discussed with the witness during his interview. And with your leave, I will give him a hard copy.
Yes, you may proceed. Court officer, could you deliver the document from the prosecution for the witness examination?
Thank you. At the very start of the document, the author says, "To respected and beloved Ankar, we would like to give additional report to Ankar on actions to purge the contemptible traitors in the rank across the zone." And if we look further down at Khmer ERN 000-21511, French 00532-782, and English 00583-934, there is a list of Sector 37 individuals who had been purged according to this document. There's a reference here to Tin, member of the sector and secretary of the Srey Ambel district. Are you familiar with that individual?
No, I did not know this person.
And the individual immediately below at number 2, Savat, secretary of Prey Nup and Srey Ambel districts. Is that someone that you're familiar with?
Yes, I knew this person.
Is that someone who disappeared during the time that you were in the West Zone?
The person by the name of Savat, he did not disappear. He was a soldier, and after his surgery, he was relieved of his duty, but I did not know where he was sent to.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to look at another document and perhaps before we do that, I just want to make sure that we have the record complete. In your third OCIJ interview, E3/73, in question and answer number 4, you indicated that M401 was Ta Si's office. Is that a correct summary of your statement? M401 was the office of Ta Si, who was also known as Chu Chet.
Yes, that was his office. And nobody could enter there except authorized people like Da Seung. I myself would not be authorized to enter that office.
Thank you. Moving right along to this other document that I wish to show you. It's another report from M401. And this is document E3/1094. Your Honours, I have a hard copy. With your permission, I'll hand it to the witness.
Yes, you may proceed. Court officer, could you deliver the hard copy from the prosecutor for the witness examination?
Thank you, Your Honours. This document is addressed to respected, beloved and missed Ankar, and it is a monthly report to Ankar. Only one section that I wish to look at because it relates to Sector 37. If we go to Khmer ERN 00143610, French 00593-530, and English 00315-374. There's a heading there, Mr. Vaughan, Sector 37, and below that, subheading, the activities of the hidden enemy burrowing from within. There is another heading just a few lines lower that is as follows: about the screening of the Yuan elements, CIA agent, and the not good elements. Number 1, smashed 100 ethnic Yuans, included small and big, adults and children. Number 2, smashed 60 persons who had been from the ranking group, as well as the CIA of the American imperialists who were hiding in the units and cooperatives. This seems to describe a smashing of a large number of Vietnamese people in Sector 37. Were you aware of the screening of Vietnamese people in the region?
No, I was not aware of that.
Here we have also a reference to CIA and American imperialist ranking group. When people were removed from Division 1, were some of them accused of being CIA or associated with the CIA?
Could you please rephrase your question?
Yes, of course. There's a reference there to the smashing of CIA people. My question is, when soldiers were removed from Division 1, were any of them accused of being associated with CIA?
Yes, there were.
CR
both for the CIA and those who were associated with that CIA. President Judge Lavange, you may proceed.
Oui, excusez-moi, Monsieur le procureur.
Excuse me, prosecutor, for this interruption. To clarify what you're saying, can you ask the witness whether, as of the date of that report, he was still working at Sector 38?
Thank you very much, Judge Laverne. Mr. Vaughan, this document is dated 4th of August 1980, 4th of August 1978. As at that time, and I should indicate it is a monthly report for July 1978. So as at that time, July 1978, were you still in the Kokong region?
I already left Kokong by then.
And just before we move on to your next location, I just have a couple more questions about your activities in Division 1. Were you ever required to attend any meetings in Phnom Penh?
No, I never attended any meeting held in Phnom Penh.
What about other events, annual celebrations or otherwise? Did you travel to Phnom Penh for any other events?
No, I did not. If such an event was held, it will be held at our place.
Did you need to take a break, Mr. Vaughan?
President, Mr. Witness, would you like to go to the bathroom? You may do so if you wish.
Mr. President, if I just may use this time to make a brief comment. I know it's rather embarrassing to be confronted with what your colleagues are up to across town. I'm sure that's embarrassing for all 7 of you up there on the bench. However, that doesn't change the fact that those events are transpiring beyond this glass wall, that there are certain very unpleasant judicial realities being executed by your brethren, that is, by members of your judiciary. And to simply cut off my microphone and pretend that you don't want to hear about these things, I suggest that is a shirking of your duty as judicial officers. Now, the legacy of this tribunal, one of the legacies of this tribunal, is to have a positive impact, a positive effect on the national justice system. Now, if you're confronted with
President, of course, you have your own reason in your attempts to submit a new document before this chamber. We have instructed all the parties in regard to the process of submitting a new document. If that is your intention, please do so in writing with sufficient grounds as stipulated in Rule 87.3, including all the sub-rules in Rule 87, so that the Chamber will consider that application. We are not here to please you. We are here for the just cause and for the expeditious trial and for the justice, as well as the effectiveness of the use of the time. And you just cannot be on your feet and raise any matter. You need to have grounds for raising your point, and what you raise is a new point, and it is contradictory to the instructions by the Chamber in regards to the submission of a new document. There is an existing procedure for you to follow. And if you intend to submit that new document, please follow that procedure. And you do that in writing. Please be seated. You are not allowed to speak anymore on this point.
The President, Mr. Prosecutor, you may continue your line of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Vaughan, just earlier we were discussing your move, or rather the timing of your departure from Koh Kong. Now we will be discussing your time in Preah Vihear region, but I just want to refer to one of your statements for the purposes of clarifying the timing. E3/424 at question and answer 19, you state that you went to control sector in Preah Vihear in August 1978. Does that refresh your memory as to the time? Was it in August 1978 that you left Koh Kong, or was it earlier in that year?
Response. I left Koh Kong for Preah Vihear province. It was in August 1978. It was on that date I left for Preah Vihear from Koh Kong province.
Now, you left Koh Kong in August 1978. How did you travel to Koh Kong? Which direction did you take, leaving from Koh Kong and traveling towards Preah Vihear? Did you go through Phnom Penh or some other route?
Response. I left Koh Kong on a motorboat, and then we got to Sraiambal, and then from Sraiambal we took the truck from Srambal to Phnom Penh. And then the division in Phnom Penh took us to Siem Reap, and then we traveled from Siem Reap to Pravihir.
While you were in Phnom Penh, did you have any meetings to discuss what you were going to be doing in Pravihir?
When I left Koh Kong and arrived in Phnom Penh, joining the company was Mr. Ta Seung, who was the secretary of the division, and then we met with Pol Pot in Onalam Pagoda.
Did you meet, was it just Ta Seung and yourself who met with Pol Pot, or were there other people also present?
Response. Yes, I met with the commanders of other divisions, but I did not know who were who. But altogether, there were around 12 people.
During that stay in Pol Pot, I apologize, during that stay in Phnom Penh, did you at any time meet or speak to Nuon Chea or Khieu Sampong?
No, I did not meet Nuon Chea or Khieu Sampong. I met with only Pol Pot.
And what was discussed in that meeting with Pol Pot?
Response. When I was meeting with Pol Pot, he reported to us the ongoing situation, particularly from the eastern part of the country, namely from Prey Veng, Svai Rieng, Kampong Cham, Ratanakiri and Mandalkiri provinces. He describes the ongoing situation over there, particularly the Vietnamese enemy who were attacking along the border.
And was it Pol Pot that summoned you and Ta Seung to this meeting?
Response. Ta Seung actually convened me to meet with Pol Pot.
And did you receive any instructions at that meeting about your transfer to Pravihir?
Response. Before I left for Pravihir station, I listened to him concerning the ongoing situation from the eastern zone, and in addition, he also told me the situation in Pravihir as well, because there were people who were arrested and people who were starving over there. And people in Siem Reap were also facing the similar situation. People were in prison over there.
And what was your task? What were you tasked to do in going to Preavihir?
Response. First, he asked Ta Seung to be stationed in Siem Reap in order to investigate the issue concerning the imprisonment of some people over there. And my task in Preavihir province was to conduct investigation concerning the arrest and imprisonment of some people, whether or not that was the case. And in addition, I was also tasked to follow up with the transport of materials and goods to people in Preavihir province, whether or not those goods reached the people and destination in Preavihir.
Before we move on, I just want to clarify one thing. In your statement E3/424 at answer number 11, you said that during the meeting in Siem Reap there were Pol Pot, Ta Mok, Ta Se and Ta Suong attending, but I was not. Was that a different meeting? Was there another meeting in Siem Reap attended by Pol Pot, Ta Mok, Ta Se and Ta Suong?
Response. The meeting held in Siem Reap, I did not attend because I was in the lower rank position. I was not supposed to be in that meeting. The meeting was convened with the attendance of the committee members attached to that sector.
And was Ta Se one of the people attached to that sector in Siem Reap?
Response. I did not know him personally. I only overheard his name.
Now, when you were describing your activities in Siem Reap, or rather in Preavihir, you said the following in statement E3/424, the same one we were looking at earlier. This is question and answer number 13. You said, I reported to Khieu Sampong by telegrams in which I wrote down the reports and my name and sector 103 on paper for dispatch to Khieu Sampong. And then you said that when the situation became tense, you reported once a week and sometimes once a month. And for completeness, just before I ask you a couple of questions, in the same statement at answer 18, you were asked, why did you have to report to Khieu Sampong? You said, because there was a telegram sent from Khieu Sampong to me instructing that I had to report about any situation to him. Is that a correct summary of your statement to the investigators, that you had received a telegram from Mr. Khieu Sampong instructing him to report to him?
Response. As for the telegram, yes, he did send me a telegram instructing me so. And I reported to him the situations from Siem Reap, particularly people who were imprisoned and those who were later released by Tasung, including his in-law as well, and he was later on attached to the division in Siem Reap.
Thank you for giving a comprehensive answer. We'll just take it one step at a time. Where did that telegram reach you, the first telegram from Khieu Samphan instructing you to report? Where was it sent to you?
I do not recall the exact date, but the telegram was sent to me once. At that time, the situation was looming and tensed, and then he sent me the telegram. He asked us to report whether or not we saw any of his relatives, for example, his uncles or so. So I had to report this to him.
So when you received the telegram asking you to inquire into the whereabouts of his relatives, did you then go and investigate what had happened to them?
Yes, when I actually conducted investigation, I went all the way to Pravihir, and I also found his mother-in-law as well. She was an elderly person, and she was fearful of the arbitrary arrest of the people at the time. So I took them from Pravihir to Siem Reap, and then when they got to Siem Reap, they were not comfortable because they were afraid that they would be arrested. But then I sent him to the division in Siem Reap, and I did not know where they continued their journey to at that times, because the situation of the war at that times was looming and tense.
In the telegram that you received from Mr. Khieu Samphan, did he say anything about what had happened to his relatives? Was there any information that they may have been arrested in that telegram?
As per his instruction, that was it. He instructed me to follow up with the welfare of his relatives, and if they were facing hardship, then they should be sent to Phnom Penh. And then because the situation at the times was chaotic, and then we lost contact from then on.
Now, I just want to resolve one small issue. I think you said earlier that the sister-in-law and mother-in-law of Khieu Samphan were in Prayer Vihir. And I just want to read one section from your statement in A14, answer number 14 of statement E3/424. You said, at the beginning, I reported about his older sister-in-law named Yit, who now lives in Malay, who was detained at the security centre in Siem Reap province. Then I reported about the people in Preah Vihear, many of whom were facing starvation, and the arrests of the people and detention in the security office. Just first, where was Khieu Samphan's sister-in-law detained? Was it in Preah Vihear or in a security centre in Siem Reap?
She was detained in Siem Reap.
What was the location? You describe it as a security centre. Was that a security centre that belonged to the Siem Reap region?
The security center at that time was located in the former regime prison complex.
Was that a large complex? Was it a large prison?
It was fairly large. It was a brick building, and this prison actually was left from the previous regime.
Were there many prisoners in that complex?
Response. In my estimation, there could have been up to 700 prisoners.
When you went there, did you meet with people in charge of the prison? How was it that you were able to locate Khieu Samphan's sister-in-law?
Response. Ta Seung conducted investigation, and then he learned about her detention, and then he sent me to Preah Vihear province.
Did you personally go to the security centre in Siem Reap to have Khieu Samphan's sister-in-law released?
Yes, I went to the prison along with Ta Seung.
And when you went there, how were you able to release this person?
In order to secure her release, I did not go to meet with the officer in charge of that prison. Ta Seung had done that earlier on, and then I only went there later on after the issue was already sorted out.
You mentioned earlier Khieu Samphan's mother-in-law. Was she also at the same security centre when you had the sister-in-law released?
Response. As for the father and mother-in-law of Mr. Khieu Samphan, they were not arrested and detained. They stay at their home in Preah Vihear province. They did not come to Siem Reap province.
Apart from the sister-in-law, mother-in-law and father-in-law, did you meet any other relatives of Mr. Khieu Samphan?
បាទ
Response. I did not know all the relatives of Mr. Kyusampon. I only knew his fathers and mother-in-law and his sister-in-law by the name of Jiet. And we did not discuss anything with each other.
Very well. Did you then send a telegram to Mr. Kyusampon, or did you report in some other way to him about what you had done?
បាទ
Response. Yes, I reported to him only once about the situation of his mother and father-in-law and the situation of the starvation people were facing. I also reported to him about the welfare of his mother and fathers-in-law as well, and that was the only one instance when I reported to him. And then after that, there were attacks by the Vietnamese troops along the way, so we lost contact with each other.
Just on the issue of reporting, in your first statement, E3/424, we looked at this passage earlier, question and answer 13. You described how you wrote down the reports and your name, as well as Sector 103, on paper for dispatch to Kyusampon. Then you ordered some men to type and send the reports. And then you said, when the situation became tense, I reported once a week and sometimes once a month. Is that a correct summary of the position, that you sent a number of reports, sometimes once a week and sometimes once a month?
That is correct.
What did you understand to be Mr. Kyusampon's position at that point in time?
Response. To my knowledge, Sector 103 was under his supervision. According to what people told me at that time, that this sector was known as autonomous sector, and it was supposed to report directly to Kyusampon. And at that time, Kyusampon was called Ankol Kyusampon.
Who were these people that told you that Sector 103 was under Kyusampon's supervision?
People over there knew that, and they told me.
Can you be a bit more specific? Who were these people? Were they members of the party, people working in the area? What were their positions?
They were ordinary people. Some of them who were those who were at the hospitals, and the chief of the hospital also told me, but I did not know the name of that chief of the hospital.
And is that the reason that when you received a telegram from Kyusampon instructing you to report. Is that the reason that you proceeded to report to him?
I did not quite get your question.
Thank you. You said earlier that you were told that Sector 103 was under Q Sampan's supervision. Is that the reason that you responded to his instruction to report and to look for his relatives?
Yes, that is correct.
I'll rephrase that. When you went and released Q Sampan's sister-in-law from the prison in Siem Reap, what happened to the other 700 prisoners? Were they still detained?
After I released them, I left for Pravi here, and so I did not know what happened at the back after I left.
But on the day you went there, the only prisoner you took out of the prison, if I understand you correctly, was Q Sampan's sister-in-law. The other prisoners remaining at the prison. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Do you recall whether... I'll rephrase that. Did Ta Suong find out in his investigation who had ordered Q Sampan's sister-in-law to be imprisoned?
I did not know about that, because the distance between Siem Reap and Pravi here was a long distance, and I did not know what had happened at the back when I left for Pravi here. And it's also extremely difficult to travel at the time.
Very well. In your first statement, E3/424, at question and answer number 11, you explained how Ta Suong had told you that he was nominated to be the chairman of the New North Zone. Do you know who he was nominated by?
Yes, I knew it was Tamok. And I didn't know if there were anybody else. who actually appointed him to that position.
Do you know who was the preceding Secretary of the New North Zone? In other words, before Ta Suong was appointed, who was in that position before him?
No, I did not know.
You mentioned earlier, we looked at a passage where at a meeting in Siem Reap, there were Ta Pol Pot, Ta Mok, Ta Se and Ta Suong. To the best of your knowledge, did Ta Se have any responsibilities in the Siem Reap region before Ta Suong?
I only knew that Ta Seung, Ta Mok, but I did not see Ta Sai or Pol Pot. I did not actually know much about the meetings amongst those people because I was at a lower level.
Thank you. In the limited time that is remaining, I want to show you one more document. Your Honours, this is a witness statement, an OCIJ record of interview number E3/420, and it is a statement by TCW 548. This individual discusses, I believe, Mr. Vaughan's activities. With your leave, I will show it to Mr. Vaughan and see if he recognises that individual and ask him a couple of questions about issues in that statement.
President, yes, you may use that statement, but please do not reveal the name of that witness. Court officer, could you deliver that document for the witness examination? And duty counsel, could you assist and advise your client not to speak of the name of that witness?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Vaughan, you heard Mr. President's instruction. We are not to mention the name of this person, so please just look at the name. It's at Khmer ERN 00407773, just for your benefit. So the page. Are you able to identify or locate the part of the statement where the person's name is indicated?
Yes, I know this person, but I did not speak to him.
Thank you. Now, so that the record is complete, I want to indicate that in that statement, at question and answer number 813, this individual actually says that when you came to Sector 103, there were no more arrests. And he says about you, he tried to calm and deal with the emotional fear of the cadres and people living there. And also he released prisoners who were arrested, etc. This is his description of what you did in Previ here. There is just another part of his statement that I want to quickly go through with you. We have very little time. At A4, in that statement, he was asked, do you know staff of Sector 103 who were arrested to Siem Reap security centres and still survive? And then he goes on to say, the survivors include, and a few lines down, Bang Chorn, male, who worked at Sector 103's commerce and also was the elder brother-in-law of Ta Kyu Sampong. And Bang Yit, female, who was the head of women of Sector and also was the elder sister-in-law of Ta Kyu Sampong. This person seems to recall another relative, Bang Chorn. Do you recall that person? Do you recall whether that person was also held at the Siem Reap prison?
Yes, I knew that, but I was not sure of the in-law relation of that person to Kyu Sampong. President, thank you. Witness, thank you, the prosecutor. The time is appropriate for a break. We shall take a 20-minute break and return at 3 p.m. Court officer, could you assist the witness and the duty counsel during the break and have them returned at 3 p.m. The court is now adjourned.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រោកឈរ